We're going to get started in about 1 minute. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our 2021 reopening plan information night for parents. I am Dr. Kimberly Sarfty, and with me tonight, I have one of our third grade teachers, Jan Maddie. I have our special education teacher, Zach Blake. I have our school nurse, Kim Deppen. And I also have our library media specialist, Mrs. Garrity. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to get started right now. Okay. So, our Mont Vernon Village School goals for 2021 are aligned with the district goals. The goals are comprised of creating a safe and comfortable environment for all students and staff. We want to make sure that everybody's safety is paramount here. We also want to make sure that all of our students achieve at least 1 year of academic growth. And we know that in order to do that and to make this a successful year, we have to be very flexible and very creative. There will be some hiccups. We will make some mistakes, but you know what? We're going to reassess, and we're going to make sure that along the way, we do what's best for kids, and we also keep everybody safe. And then most importantly, we want everybody to be excited about learning, and we want kids to want to come to school. And so those are our goals for this year. Again, safety is paramount. We've all been purchasing really amazing and fun masks. I know I have a bunch of Disney masks that I had made. And we're going to certainly create a culture where this is what we do. We're civic minded, we're part of a community, and it's our job to make sure that we wear our masks so that we can keep our neighbors safe. And so that's just going to be part of the everyday life here in the school. And as you all already know, there is a district mandate. Everybody who is inside the building will be required to wear a mask. And so we're going to make sure that we enforce that policy. The great thing about having a small school here is that we have minimal disruptions when it comes to programming. A survey was sent out to all of the teachers, and all of the classroom teachers have elected to stay in school and teach in their classrooms. And so luckily, all of the grade level teachers will not be moving. They'll be teaching either their content area, or if it's a self-contained class K through 3, they'll be teaching all the subjects, but within their classroom in their normal, their typical grade assignment. We do have 2 teachers who will be teaching remotely, and those were teachers who were our interventionists. They have been really gracious, and they have agreed to teach remotely. We're actually going to add a 3rd teacher into the remote mix. So the only changes when it comes to programming will be our library media specialist, who will take on some remote learning, and then our 2 interventionists. Otherwise, all of the other teachers will just keep their same grade level assignments. We are going to be dividing students into grade level bands, and those, I am noticing a typo right there. So the grade level bands consist of K2, 3, 5, no, K2, 3, 4, and 5, 6. And the reason that we're doing that is because we want to allow for a little bit of fluidity and flexibility within the grade level bands, but we also want to make sure that we minimize large groups of students from interacting and from potentially spreading any sort of illness. So we want to make sure that we only have students in K2 together, whether it be recess, or again, if we have to have students who, let's say they need some special services, if they're going to be together, they'll be together within those bands, and we'll try not to mix kids outside of those bands. Otherwise, most of our programming stays the same with regard to they're going to have a full lunch and recess, and we'll talk about that later, and they're just going to have a regular full schedule like they've always had. We're going to also make sure that we maintain specials as well, but I'll get into more of that later on. So when it comes to our school hours are exactly the same as they always have been. The only difference is that there will be no before school recess. We are going to ask that all students, wear masks upon arrival. Also, I forgot to mention at the beginning of this that our chat feature is disabled. And so if you do have questions, if you could please submit those questions through the Q&A feature on Zoom, that'd be really helpful, okay? So back to arrivals at school. We're asking parents who are dropping their students off to drop them off no earlier than 8:25. We have changed the flow of traffic here at the school, and we're going to make sure that we put up new signs, and we're going to make sure that we're directing parents in cars. So what's going to happen is that parents, when they arrive in their cars, they're going to go to the far entrance of the parking lot. They'll stay in the left lane, and they will be directed around the back of the building. And we're kind of figuring that a lot of parents will be dropping off their students who may not have been dropping off their students before. So this will allow cars to line up all the way up Kittredge Road through the parking lot and then around to the rear of the building. And this will be really great because it will expedite drop off, because we'll have several adults outside. And just like you've done in the past, there'll be a sign with your student's name, and you'll just hold up the sign, and the teachers will know. They can kind of they can look at like 3 or 4 cars in a row, and they can expedite the drop off process and just have the kids come out of the cars, and then the teachers or the paraprofessionals, whoever is out at duty, will be directing students to go right into the building and right to their classrooms. And we recognize that, you know, the first couple of weeks of school, students might not know where to go. So we'll make sure that there's somebody showing them where to go, so that we can get into this routine. So we are also asking that parents stay in their vehicles. We're not going to allow staff to open car doors or assist students in exiting vehicles. And of course, this is a safety precaution. So we're still going to have 3 buses like we've always had, and buses actually they'll be actually dropping off in the front of the building. They're going to use the main entrance, and so the buses will just drive up, and students will come off, and the same kind of deal where they will enter the school, and they'll be directed to their classrooms. With walkers, we're asking that walkers arrive no earlier than 8:25 in the morning, and they can enter through the front entrance of the building, and they can report directly to their classrooms. I do want you to know that the classroom teachers are going to be in their classrooms at 8:25, ready and waiting for students to come. When it comes to dismissal, it's a very similar process. All of the parents who are picking up will go to the rear of the building. Buses will pick up students from the front of the building, and we're going to be dismissing walkers at 3:15. We're going to ask that walkers leave the school property promptly, because unfortunately, if they hang around, you know, we would just like to minimize contact and things like that, and it would just be better if they could just report directly home. And also, I should note that all bus students are required to wear masks on the bus at all times. So again, we've talked about how we'll need all hands on deck with regard to morning and afternoon duties. We are going to make sure that every single adult is part of our drop off and our pickup and getting students out to their buses, because we just want to make sure that students know where they're supposed to be going, especially where they're not going to be lined up outside anymore. Okay, so when it comes to in-person, again, grades K through 3 are self-contained for the core academic content. They will have double blocks for ELA, for language arts, and they will have double blocks for math. Students in grades 4 through 6 will have 2 core academic teachers, and they'll have double blocks of humanities and STEM. All students will be utilizing Dreambox, which is our online supplemental math program, for a minimum of 90 minutes per week. And we are going to be monitoring that usage. We're also going to be monitoring progress on Dreambox. There is a linking study that has informed us that if students spend a minimum time on Dreambox, they tend to perform better when it comes to the NEWA test, which is one of our core standardized tests, and then also the SAS. Students will also have one block of specials per day, and I'll get into more of that a little bit later, but they're going to have one block of specials per day. That might be a little bit different than it has been last year. We're actually going to have, each grade level will have an A group and a B group. And we'll have, for the first 3 days of the week, from Monday through Wednesday, we'll have one special. So like on week 1, A group will have PE. And then on week 1, B group will have, they'll have 3 days of Spanish. And then the next week, they'll flip-flop. And it will be the same for students who are receiving specials on Thursday and Friday too. We have part-time specialists, so we had to break up those duties and make sure that every student was going to have a block of specials every day. So we also have an opportunity for morning snack, just like students have always had. And we have 25 minutes for students to eat lunch and 25 minutes for recess. I will tell you that I met with food services today, and we talked about for the first 2 weeks of school, so students are going to be having lunch in the classroom. And so we talked about for the first 2 weeks of school, we're only going to be offering cold lunch just while we figure out the logistics of delivering the food, making sure that every student has what they need, and then we will expand our menu after the first 2 weeks. But I did want you all to know that. So back to lunch and recess. I think I covered most of this, but I will tell you that recess will be divided into 2 bands, and it's going to be K2 and 3-6. And I believe that those bands are kind of what you've always experienced here at Mont Vernon. So what will happen is that K2 will eat lunch first, and 3-6 will go outside and have recess, or in the NPR, depending on weather, and then we'll flip-flop for the next 25 minutes. But we're going to make sure that when it comes to delivering food here from the cafeteria, we're going to do that a couple minutes early, especially the first week. That's why we really just want to make sure that we have just cold lunch options, because we don't want the food to deteriorate or get cold or anything like that. But we just want to make sure we have enough time so that students can use that entire 25 minutes to eat their lunch. I know as a mom, I have 4 children of my own. I know how important it is that kids have enough time to eat. And I promise you that that will happen here. When it comes to outside recess, there will be 3 locations that we are able to utilize. Because of the fact that we have such small classrooms, I guess we're going to have to see if we're going to need to use all 3 locations. I think probably for the 3 to 6 band, we'll probably have to use all 3 locations, but for K2, we might just use 2 locations. They're a little bit closer together just so we can have eyes on everybody. And lunch and recess will be monitored by our paraprofessionals, and teachers will continue to have a duty-free lunch and additional co-planning time. I will say that lunch time for our teachers here is absolutely critical. We have a very, very positive school culture. Teachers cannot say enough good things about this school, about the students, the parents, and about their colleagues. And so we want to make sure that we don't disrupt that lunchtime and that co-planning time after lunch, because it is really, really critical. That's the time when K teachers will be talking to grade 2 teachers and asking them about the curriculum, and they'll be discussing, teachers who are in the same grade levels will be discussing how lessons went and things like that. So we definitely want to make sure that we maintain that for both students and for teachers. So we know that relationships and connections are central to success and keeping our kids engaged in the MVVS school community. And so for that reason, all of our students will be assigned an anchoring adult. Anchoring adult assignments will occur no later, or will be assigned rather, and communicated to parents and students no later than August 25th. What we're going to have to do here as the staff is, and I talked about this on Monday night at the board meeting, what we're going to do is we're going to just have a conversation first. And I do know that there are lots of teachers who have developed really strong connections with certain kids. So we want to make sure that we continue those connections. And then at the same time, and so there are teachers who have those connections, but there also might be paraprofessionals, other adults in the building, maybe a specialist, depending on students' interests and things like that. So we want to just make sure that we have the right fit for every student. We don't want to just assign anchoring adults who are the children's classroom teachers. we're going to make sure that that's really individualized. So that will be communicated to parents and teachers no later than August 24th. So when it comes to supplies, our teachers have just finished creating their supply list. They had to change a few things around this year. We're going to ask that students have individual supplies, and we're going to try to be consistent with individual supplies as much as possible. It's possible that we'll have math manipulatives that will be prepared for individual student use. And also when it comes to mystery science and hands-on learning experiences, we're going to make sure that kids have individual supplies so that they're not mixing with other students. And additionally, when it comes to art, our new art teacher is amazing. I don't know if you've been checking out our Facebook page, but we have all of our staff members actually have been creating videos to introduce themselves or to just talk about how excited they are for the 2021 school year. And you'll see our new art teacher is on there as well. So she's been really thinking about projects that will allow students to be really creative and also utilize these core art supplies that we're going to be asking for, so that we're just not mixing supplies. And again, the teachers they've revised their class list to reflect the individual use. So when it comes to outdoor learning, we're really lucky that each one of our classrooms has exterior classroom doors. And so that allows teachers to have access. And this is great, access to the outdoors. This is great because students need mask breaks, and we know that they need them. We're asking teachers to give mask breaks at least one time an hour, even if it's just for a few minutes. So this is really wonderful because they'll be able to do that with minimal disruption. We're also working with our IT department to ensure that we have connectivity when it comes to student devices when students are outside their classroom. We're going to use tents and some flexible seating options so that we can provide shade. We can provide shade for our students and teachers, and we can also find a comfortable place for them to sit. And I will say that our PTA has been wonderful. Our PTA president, Autumn, has been in constant contact with me. And so they are working hard with us to make sure that we can provide those shady areas, and we really appreciate that. So thank you so much to our PTA. We appreciate you. So again, one of our goals for this year is to ensure that all students make at least 1 year of academic growth. And so we thought it would be really important to reframe how we approach our intervention block. And so instead of just calling it an intervention block, and instead of just targeting the students who have significant needs, we're going to make sure that we meet the needs of all of our learners. And so our intervention block is now going to be called WIN, and that stands for What I Need. And it really and truly is personalized for every single student. So if we have a student who is ready for vertical acceleration, we can ensure that that student will be challenged. We can find some wonderful activities for students to work on independently if they're ready for that level. I'm just thinking of some ideas. I know that in my former district, I had a book review website, and I had some students during WIN block. I had them. They were in charge of reaching out to students via email and getting the students' book reviews, and then these students were able to edit the book reviews, and they were posting them on the book review website that we had. And it was a really great experience, because what happened was when we had kids who were in charge of this great kind of project, it inspired their peers to read more books, and it was a really successful thing that we were able to do. And so I'm hoping that we can do some of those types of projects here for those children who are ready to just kind of fly. And then when it comes to students who have low growth, we want to make sure that we address those needs. So that's why it was really important to have those grade level bands, because if we have a student who's in 2nd grade who's really struggling with foundational reading skills, this would be the time for that student to maybe join a small group in, let's say, K or 1st grade to work on those core foundational reading skills. And because of the fact that this is really and truly individualized for all learners, there really won't be that stigma of an older student working with a group of younger students, because it's just what every student needs. And I think that's really great, because our goals are to when it comes to when they are to sustain high achievement and high growth. We also want to make sure that we boost the high achievers who have low growth. It's really hard to make sure that we sustain growth with students who are already high achievers. And so that's something that's really, really important to me, to make sure that we don't forget about those kids. We also want to make sure that we provide timely and intensive support for students who have low achievement and low growth. And we want to make sure that we frequently progress monitor. It's really, really important for us to diagnose and decide, okay, this is what a student needs. We have to meet the student where he or she is, and then we have to move them forward. And then we have to make sure that we reassess and determine whether or not what we're doing is working, because it doesn't make sense to keep doing something that doesn't work. So we really just want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our kids. And then also, again, we want to make sure that we continue to challenge students with low achievement and high growth as they work towards grade level proficiency. So again, this is with regard to Dreambox. All students are going to be required to engage in Dreambox for a minimum of 90 minutes per week. This is something that's really important to me as the building principal. Again, I'll be working with the teachers to monitor usage, monitor progress, and what I plan to do is every Friday have Dreambox awards, and I will be just going around to the classroom, and I will hand out those awards, and I think that'll be something to inspire students to try their best when it comes to Dreambox. So I'm excited about that. I have my children at home are also school aged, and I have my youngest child using Dreambox, and he's been doing great. Okay, so I'm actually going to let Mr. Blake jump in here.
All right, thank you, Kim. So special education services will be available both in person and remotely for anyone who chooses either modality. And we will be able to shift services because we have the segments throughout the school year. We'll be able to shift services if needed. So if you start remote and you need to go in person or vice versa, we can make that happen for you. That will also include related services, so speech services, OT services as well. We have broken up, we have 3 special educators in the building, and we have broken or given each special educator a grade level band. So that way we reduce the number of people moving throughout the building. And we have also assigned paraprofessionals to those bands as well. We are moving paraprofessionals throughout the building so that they are close to their grade level bands, and that will reduce the movement throughout the building as well. Our goal is to be able to provide services per every student's IEP while providing them in a safe manner. We offer services both in the classroom, and so we will still do team teaching with teachers, but we also have individualized services that we provide. And for extra protection, we will be using PPE all throughout or per the district's plan, but we also have clear partitions in addition to that, just to make sure everyone's protected. All meetings will take place via Zoom, and that's a format that our families got used to in the spring, and I think it worked out really well for families because people were able to make sure they made it to the meetings, and it worked for people's schedules. So those will take place via Zoom. And if you have any questions regarding special education, you're always welcome to reach out to me as building coordinator, and I think that's all.
Thanks, Zach.
Sure.
Okay, so we do have a new guidance counselor here at the Mont Vernon Village School, and the new guidance counselor will be delivering one SEL lesson, a social emotional learning lesson, to each class 1 time a week. And then she'll also be scheduling office hours with students, and this will be something that will be in a consistent schedule, but also students will have the ability to just drop in the office and see her on an as needed basis. So we also have our library media specialist, Mrs. Garrity, here. I'm going to let her jump in right now.
Thank you, Kim, and hello, MVVS parents and students. I'm looking forward to another year of library media classes. I'll be offering library media classes via Google Classroom to all remote students, and in-school students will also have access to these lessons, so they won't miss anything. Students will be able to reserve books online, and they will either be delivered to their classroom, or remote students will have the opportunity for curbside pickup. Because my students just love makerspace, and I'm a maker myself, and it's a good time to have hands-on and a little less tech, I will try to offer makerspace to go activities once a month. It could be physical materials provided for students, or it could be online activities. So if you have any suggestions, I would love to hear them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I just want to say, I think it's really wonderful that Mrs. Garrity is going to be working with students both remotely and in person. And I should say the same for Mr. Blake. He's going to be working with students who are remote and students who are in person. And so thank you so much for taking that on. I know that's a lot of work. It's wonderful that students are still going to have access to books, and that includes our remote students. So thank you. Okay. So when it comes to specials here, again, we talked about this a little bit. What we're going to do is make sure that all students have a regular special schedule, and we're going to strive for in-person specials as much as possible. Of course, we can't predict the future, but our goal while students are in school is that we have in-person specials every single day. PE will be held outdoors as much as possible as long as weather permits, and we also have a new PE teacher, and she is getting really excited to be outside with the kids. And so art will also, like I said earlier, take place in the classroom, and we're going to have those supplies individually consumed. I think in the past, art and Spanish took place in a separate room, but rather than filtering all of the students in and out of that one room, we're actually going to have art and Spanish come to the classroom, and or we can utilize the multi-purpose room or the library, as long as we have groups fewer than 18. And the same thing with music. Music will actually take place in the MPR so that we can space students out. And I just want to say too that I spoke with our new music teacher, Miss Carl, and we talked about potentially having a remote option for band. And so there's more to come on that. I know that one of the recommendations is that we don't have students using instruments together in the same room. And so if we did something maybe that was remote, and she could offer some either explicit instruction in via Zoom, live Zooms, or if she could make some videos, that'd be really great because students would still have access to band. Okay, so our remote learning. I know a lot of parents have questions with regard to remote learning. Okay, so I'm going to ask everybody, if you have a question, can you please use the Q&A feature? I know that everybody has questions, and I appreciate that. I just need you to just let me get through this, and then as the questions come up, just put them in the Q&A feature if that's possible. Okay. Ooh. I lost my slide here. Nope. Here we go. Okay. So when it comes to our overarching goals of remote scheduling, again, we want to make sure that it becomes an equity issue. And so we want to make sure that our students receive a consistent and quality education, regardless of the delivery model, whether it be in person or remote. So students will be provided with a synchronous or scheduled learning opportunities throughout the week for each course. Students and families are also provided some flexibility to continue learning through a combination of asynchronous, which would be like self-paced supports. We encourage all parents to log in alongside their child to view their work and their progress within Google Classroom. I know that this technology is new for some parents and for some students as well. So making sure that we as parents have access to Google Classroom, to Zoom, and we know how to use those things so that we can support our learners, that would be really, really helpful. My own children had to transition to remote learning last year, and I know that I had to get used to some of these programs as well. So I understand the struggle, believe me. Our remote learners will be placed in grade level bands, and those bands will consist of K2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, just like in person. Remote learners will always have the option of signing up for extra support, and you'll notice when I show you the schedules that we have, that our teachers have been really wonderful about embedding small group support, one-on-one support in office hours, so that we can make sure that we're meeting the needs of every single learner, both remotely and in person. And again, online programs such as Dreambox and Mystery Science will be utilized during remote instruction. And Google Classroom, of course, will serve as the main platform for remote learning. I will tell you that in speaking with all the teachers who will be teaching in person, we did ask them, and they're wonderful to agree, we did ask them to get students used to logging into Google Classroom really from kind of day one, so that if we do have a status change and we do have to go remote for the entire school, it will be a pretty smooth transition, because it will be something that students are comfortable with and they're used to using. And we can certainly get our K students ready and used to Google Classroom. I've seen it done really successfully, and I think we certainly can do that here with the great teachers that we have in our classrooms. And I also want to give a shout out to Mr. Martinez, who is our IT person here. He has been working nonstop, super diligently, to make sure that we have all of the devices ready for deployment when students come back to school. So thank you for that, Mr. Martinez, and also the entire IT department. They've been great. So here is a sample grade 2 remote schedule. And I just want to make sure that I explain how the duties are going to be divided up. So we're going to have 3 remote teachers. One of those teachers is an ELA or reading interventionist, and the other one is a math interventionist, and then we have another teacher who is to be determined. The interventionists have been working with all grade levels here at the school. They are very familiar with the curriculum across all the grade levels. They've been teaching in class at all the different grade levels, and they've been working with students, I think, since day one. And so this is, although it's a very heavy lift for our math interventionist is going to be actually teaching K through 6. Although it's a heavy lift, we know that she's prepared to do that. We know that she basically eats and breathes the math curriculum. I think she wrote a lot of it. And all of it is, of course, aligned to the Common Core state standards and addresses the shifts that the Common Core calls for. And so we're really fortunate to have those 2 individuals working for ELA in math. Now, the 3rd teacher is going to be teaching ELA just in grades 5 and 6. And then he or she will also be taking care of science. So that's what the 3rd teacher would be doing. And we have Mrs. Garrity, who will be teaching technology to our remote learners. So you'll notice, if you look, let's say Monday, grade 2 remote schedule, you'll notice that on Monday, this grade 2 learner will have language arts, ELA, will have science, math, and then there's a break embedded in there. And then there is time for a lot of small group support, office hours, and one-on-one support. And I think that's going to be really, critical for students, because the remote learning environment is definitely different. Some kids really thrive in a remote environment. I know one of my own children did, and then I had another child who struggled a little bit. So these built-in times for small group support and one-on-one support are really, really important. And so here we go. Here is a sample of a grade 4 remote schedule. You'll notice that there is, for upper grades, there is some independent work time built into the schedule. The blocks for math are a little bit longer, and then the students will have ELA every single day, and they will also have embedded time for Dreambox. And I will say that our Fridays are not a flex day. Fridays are a work day for all students and all teachers. However, we are going to make sure that on Fridays, that's when we offer the most support, so that we can make sure that no student is left behind. That's very, very important to us. And you'll see a sample of a grade 6 remote schedule. And you'll notice that, again, there is some independent work time embedded into the schedule for our students in grades 4 through 6. And there is, just so you know, there is a handbook, a parent handbook, and all of these details along with every single schedule, in person and remote, are in the handbook. And that's something that I believe is accessible on the SAU website, and it is also accessible on our MVVS Facebook page. Okay, so when it comes to remote learning specialists are going to share resources and links via Google Classroom for art, music, social emotional learning, and PE. And that will allow students and parents to access these resources on demand. So whenever it is that you think is a good time for your student to have PE while at home, you can access these resources. I will tell you that specials will not be monitored for remote learners except for technology, because Mrs. Gary is going to dedicate 2 days to remote learners, and then the other 3 days she'll be here in the building working on just library things, like delivering books and getting all the books to students and things like that. And again, she talked about the makerspace, all of that stuff she'll do when she's in the building. So we are actually asking for some resources here at Mont Vernon. What we're asking for is 2 additional paraprofessionals, and we're asking for the paraprofessionals to assist us with increased responsibilities associated with both in-person and remote learning. And so paraprofessionals will be really, really critical when it comes to fulfilling obligations such as meeting all of the needs outlined in our IEPs and our 504 plans. Also making sure that we can provide specials to students when we need to have some virtual delivery. Let's say, heaven forbid, a specialist gets sick. We want to make sure that we don't interrupt our specials program. So we'll need our paraprofessionals for that. We also are going to need all hands on deck when it comes for a safe arrival and a safe dismissal. That will minimize contact between large groups of students. In order to do that, we need large groups of students. Right now, we have tremendous resources, and we're very, very thankful, but we don't have any extra bodies. We have the exact number of teachers for the exact number of classrooms that we have here, and we don't have anybody else. We also need to make sure that we are able to provide prep periods that are outlined in our teacher contracts, and we need to make sure that we provide duty-free lunches for our teachers so that they can continue to plan and collaborate. I will tell you that lunchtime, I mean, I've been a teacher for a very long time, and I will tell you that lunchtime is really, really critical, because teachers don't sit down and talk about, they don't talk about the store that they went to last night. They sit down and they talk about their kids, and that is going to be really important for collaborative time. And also, when it comes to having more adults in the building, we want to ensure that every single student has an anchoring adult, but we want to make sure that that load is manageable for the adults in our building. Teachers are going to be working really, really hard. And so in order to make sure that they can manage all of the students who are assigned to them as an anchoring adult, and to make sure that they can provide that necessary support and be very responsive when a parent contacts them, we need to be able to divide those duties up a little bit more and have as many adults as possible. And then I would say probably the most important justification for asking for 2 paraprofessionals is that we need bodies to assist us with intensive small group support for students who have unfinished learning due to the COVID disruptions that we've had. Every single year in every single school, there are always students who have unfinished learning and who need some extra help. I think that number is going to increase exponentially because of the fact that, everything was turned upside down in March. And so we want to make sure that we don't allow those gaps to continue to grow. We want to certainly narrow those gaps and eliminate them as much as possible. Also, we are looking for an additional teacher to assist with remote learning. When the first survey was sent out to parents requesting or at least stating a preference for remote learning, that number was much higher than we anticipated, much higher. And so when you think about a teacher teaching a number of kids, K to 6, for one content, That's a very, very heavy lift. And to be able to do that, to be able to teach all of the content areas, and to be able to make sure that we are doing what's best for our kids and making sure that they have equitable access to a high quality education, we need another teacher to be able to do that. So you'll see here how we have divided up the remote learning duties. Again, we have our amazing math interventionist. She's going to be teaching math K through 6. And we really thank her for that, because that's a lot. And she's also going to be monitoring Dreambox for our remote learners only. And we have our amazing ELA interventionist, and she's going to be teaching ELA K through 4. And I will tell you, you'll notice that the ELA blocks are more frequent. And the reason for that, especially with our little ones, is because we need a lot of time to be able to teach those foundational reading skills. It is very, very critical that we get that right the first time around. We know that by grade 3, if students are not reading at grade level by the end of that year, they're going to be in some serious trouble. And we don't want that to happen here. We don't want any student in our school to fall through the gap, or fall through the cracks rather. So you'll notice that there is a lot of time embedded into the schedule for ELA, and that is very much intentional. And then we have our third teacher who's going to be teaching ELA 5 to 6, and also teaching science from K to 6. So I know some people are concerned about events that we've had at the school, and I know it's really important to keep some of these things alive. So some of the things that I will tell you that we are thinking about is, how can we have maybe a virtual Grandparents' Day? How can we make that work so that even though it will look different, I understand that that's disappointing to some people, even though it will look different, we can kind of still keep that spirit alive here at the school. And then hopefully, you know, at some point when we resume when our status changes and we have a normal school year, we can just have Grandparents' Day be what it has always been. I will tell you that I'm working with PTA to figure out a way to have an ice cream social. We're thinking about maybe breaking up the grade levels. We're thinking about we're just thinking about how can we do that so that we still have this event, but we do it in a way that's really, really safe. So I'll definitely need to work with PTA. I'll definitely need to work with our amazing school nurse to figure out how that can happen. And, you know, it is possible that those things are not going to be able to happen, but I want you to know that I'm working really, really hard. And again, I talked about the remote chorus and band, and so there, and then somebody mentioned donation day. These are things that we are working hard to make sure that we have some consistency within our school. So I know that some people have questions, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point, and I'm going to answer whatever questions are left live, as long as I have the answers. If I don't have the answers, I'll let you know. Okay. Alrighty, so I only see 2 questions here. So will the ELA in math for K2 be live with the interventionist, or a mixture of Google Classroom activities and videos? So yes, Lauren, yes, okay. So yes, and you'll be able to see that in the parent handbook. You'll be able to see the schedule, but yes, absolutely. We have lessons that are going to be live with our teachers, and those live lessons are embedded in the schedule. It's every single day for ELA, and it's a couple of days a week for explicit lessons for math. But again, we have time in our schedule all day long, really, to be able to provide one-on-one support and small group support. So based on student needs, all of that support will be live with the teacher. We have some students who will need less support, and we have some students who will need an abundance of support. So we have definitely, we've definitely prepared for that. Will parents know at the start of the week what the curriculum plan is for the week or for the segment, so that they can help prepare, so that they can help keep their child on track, whether they're in person or remote? So I will tell you, Sarah, that's actually a great question. And so I will tell you this. I will tell you that we're still working on making sure that we figure everything out logistically. And so here we go. we're making sure that we are figuring everything out logistically, but I think that's a great suggestion. And that's something that I'll definitely have a conversation with the teachers about so that we can make sure that everybody's going to be prepared. Okay. So let's see. Next one from Sharon. Based on the preference survey, what is the expected number of students in each grade or class? My students are in 5th and 3rd. If you can tell me those numbers specifically, or is it looking like 50% remote, 75% remote? No. So I will tell you that the last survey that went out didn't actually specify the grade level, so I don't have an answer for you. The survey that is out now will have that detailed information, and I will be able to get that to you later. But I will tell you that no. The numbers are not that extreme with regard to remote. They're certainly higher than I would have anticipated, but I would say we're probably looking at least 75% in person, at least. Okay, this one is from Kristen. What will a K classroom look like if items, toys, manipulatives can't be shared and social distancing is required? Okay, so I will tell you that the K teachers and I have had extensive conversations regarding this, and I think and so I think what we're planning to do is, and I'd actually like to ask maybe Mrs. Deppen to jump in here too with regard to what is safe and what is not safe when we're touching items. Can you jump in here, Kim?
Sure, absolutely. So I know we're trying.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. So I know we're trying to keep things individual for each student. That's the ultimate goal, because we don't want kids having manipulatives and toys and everything else using, which I know is very difficult. So it's a matter of cleaning. And I will say, just in general, the nurses within the district have been in touch with, have been following with the CDC, New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services since March weekly. We also have been listening into, it was mainly for practitioners with Dr. Chen, the state epidemiologist, once a week. And most recently, we have had 3 meetings specifically with Dr. Chen just for school nurses and opening and concerns with parents and staff as well. So we've been doing all those things. There's a basic thing that we have in place, which actually has been recommended by the CDC, and it's almost like layers of protection. So you should be seeing, and I'm not sure which modality that's going to be looking like, questions that you're going to be asked every single day on a daily basis. And that's really our first screening of keeping sick kids out. That's our first offense. Any staff member, student that's sick should not be in. And I will tell you that even if it's mild, if they should not be coming in, and they will be sent home. That is the recommendation, just so you are aware of that. And I'm trying to be very frank with you as to what's going to be happening. Temperature checks will be at 100, and we are asking parents to take that responsibility on, because it really isn't feasible for us to take everybody's questionnaire and everybody's temperature every day, especially the high school when it comes to large numbers. We just can't do it. So we really need your help in that respect and looking out for our community. The questions, it's very difficult because they mimic a lot of things. So it could be gastrointestinal, they have an upset stomach, which is very common. Most of my kids come with that upset stomach. So it could just be anxiety, or is there something going on with them? So I would ask in advance, if you have an updated physical on these kids, or if they have a new diagnosis, if you could please get that before school starts and into me, because that way we can kind of tell if they come to me with an upset stomach, or they have asthma and they're having respiratory issues, then we can kind of decipher, is this a COVID type thing, or is this a pre-existing condition? So we can kind of work through that. So that's extremely important if you could get that to us ahead of time. Some of the other things, the other precautions we have in place, obviously is the distancing, which everybody has heard about, the 6 feet, we want that. Hand washing is going to be big. We're going to do lots of teaching with the kids. I know at the end of last year, I went through the lower grades and we did the simulation with the hand washing and looking at the germs underneath the black light, and they really enjoyed seeing that. So I know we'll be working with that as well. Another thing is mask, which I know is a big topic of debate and discussion, but it is proven to help prevent the spread of germs. So we really ask for your help with this. I know they're coming out with a new policy from it, but we are asking cloth mask. Usually the recommended is like a double cloth mask. We are accepting other things too. They do say that those gaiters that the kids are wearing, or buffs around their necks and then they pull up, or bandanas, things like that, aren't quite as effective, but they're still effective. just so you're aware of that. So we're not punishing these kids if their mask comes off or they take them off, but we're trying to reinforce and make a culture that this is what we do to look after each other, to make sure that I'm safe, make sure you're safe, and work together as a community. I know people have asked me about physicians' notes about making their child exempt when it comes to face masks. If you have a child talking with physicians in general, when we've been in subcommittees with 3 different physicians for the reopening task force, there's very little research or studies stating that a child cannot wear a mask. Usually that's why they say it's 2 and under, or if they're incapacitated, or if there's some reason they can't remove that mask. Those would be reasons why they couldn't. So it's a matter of just getting used to. It's a matter of the kids seeing other kids wearing them. It's a matter of going shopping with them, picking out a fun mask, things like that for the kids. And I think just having their friends wearing them and seeing them wearing, that it'll just become a normal, everyday type thing for them. And just the fact that we're trying to look out for each other, trying to be safe and trying to be healthy for one another. But like I said, I know there's lots of questions. I know in all these committees and groups I've been in, one question just leads to 10 more. So I'm sure you all will have a lot of questions and concerns. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me and I will answer the best I can. If I don't know the answer, I will find out the answer. And just keep in mind too, that this is really fluid. So the information we're getting from the CDC, Department of Health and Human Services, it changes as new research comes out. So we are sure to stay up to date on all of that.
Great, thank you, Kim. And actually, I'm hoping that maybe we can bring Jan Maddie, who's one of our 3rd grade teachers, in the mix here. And so Jan, I just want to, from a teacher perspective, can you just talk a little bit about the preparation that is going on behind the scenes with regard to teachers? I know teachers have been in here. We've been looking at moving some desks around. Actually, today we practiced standing in line. There are certain things that I know teachers are thinking about. So I just kind of wanted to bring you in from a teacher perspective.
Thanks. We're trying in the classroom to have it be as normal as possible, as much as what the kids expected. We still have math, we still have language arts, we still have all of those things. And as far as masks in the classroom, yeah, it will definitely be different for the teachers and for the students. But as a school, we have adopted responsive classroom. And responsive classroom is a way to create the culture and the climate in your classroom. And we base things on being safe, being responsible, being respectful, and being safe. Having a mask on is going to be part of it. And they won't be stressed because they've got one on, because everyone else will have one on. If there's a concern and you don't have them for your child, contact Kim Deppen or contact the classroom teacher. We will make sure that that student has a mask when they come in. We're going to use the outside classrooms as much as we can. We're very fortunate in Mont Vernon that we have so much grassy area. The majority of the teachers have exterior doors, and we're probably going to be staking claim outside of our classroom and say, okay, this is my space and that's mine. And we have that for everybody, which is great. The 3rd area that we've always had the playground and across the street, the ball field. The 3rd area that we're talking about is at the end of the upper grades, where when we have field day, it's the tug of war area. It's a flat area and we're able to use out there too. We're also blessed with small classroom sizes. So we are able to get our kids out there. The outdoor classroom that had been put in place many years ago, unfortunately right now is not available. But we have so many other spaces that we can use. And we understand that there's anxiety. There's anxiety for the kids, for the parents, for the teachers, for the admin, everyone. But we're working through it, and having this conversation with you now will definitely raise more questions, which is great because it gets us closer to our answers and being able to get in the classroom or remote learning. But either way, we're there. And the anchoring adults, we do that all the time. We always have somebody that we bond with. It may have been your last year's teacher. It may be somebody that you're looking forward to having. But as far as classroom teachers, special ed teachers, paraprofessionals, the interventionists, we all will work together to make sure we have that connection. So it's not an anchoring adult isn't really something new, but because we have remote and in classroom, we are assigning somebody, but it doesn't mean it's the only person that your child will talk to. That still stays the same.
Great. Thank you, Jan. So I just want to also note that I just got a note from our PTA president, Autumn, and so the PTA is actually going to provide one mask to every single student. So I think that's really wonderful. I actually was with one of our teachers today, and I noticed she had this great tie-dye mask, and I asked where it came from, and it actually came from Autumn's children. And so actually my husband and I are going to work with the PTA tonight, and we're going to tie-dye some of the masks. But actually, so Meg is our special ed director. And Meg, can I just bring you in for 1 second? Because I just wanted you to talk really quickly about those, the clear masks and how we're going to be utilizing them for certain students.
Sure. So I just want to congratulate Dr. Sarfty. She talked about stepping into baptism without fire, right? Starting a brand new position and having all of this to take on. So hats off to her. Been working really hard with administrative leadership and the task force, including our school nurses, to try to order and make sure everybody's prepared with the best personal protective equipment we can find. So teachers who will be working one-on-one with individual students, for example, who need speech and language services and have to remove a mask, there will be plexiglass dividers so that everybody's safe in that instance. We've also ordered certain types of what they call smile masks that have the clear face part, so that if students who are hard of hearing and do lip reading, those would be more effective for children like with those types of needs. They aren't perfect. We're working on certain types of spray that we can use on the smile masks to keep them from fogging up. I've become an expert in things that I didn't know anything about. And believe me, I didn't go to school for any of this. So we're working really closely with the administration. Zach Blake has been working with me all summer long. I've been meeting with folks at the DOE level and the state level, and we're all sort of sharing innovative ideas. And as new ideas come up, I'm not opposed to trying just about anything. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that everybody, staff and students alike in the building, are safe.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you, guys. So our next question is from Sarah, and Sarah wanted to know about volunteers at MVVS. She says that they're a big part of the culture here, and then she wanted to know if there's potential for parents to have remote volunteer opportunities, rather, maybe leading a remote story time or a game or a craft around the holidays. And I will tell you, yes, please, we want this environment to be as normal as possible. So we absolutely want to have we want to hear your ideas, and we want to have that participation with the community. I will tell you that I've met with the library director, I've met with the children's librarian, I'm meeting with the police chief tomorrow and the fire chief on Friday to figure out how can we still maintain these wonderful relationships that we have with our community members, and then at the same time make sure that we're keeping everybody safe. So absolutely, Sarah, we want to still have those parent volunteers and those community helpers. So yes, feel free to email me and let me know what your ideas are. And so I don't see any more questions. I think we're probably going to wrap this up. I just want to thank everyone. I want to thank the panelists for participating. Thank you so much for providing your insight. It's really great to hear from different perspectives. There's actually one more question. Will students be receiving their supply list on August 28th? Okay, so yes, so I will just tell you that our the class assignments will be out by August 28th. However, our administrative assistant, Charlotte, has been really great when it comes to getting all of the supply lists from teachers. And I believe that that information is going to be published to you very, very soon. I will double check on that, but I don't think that the supply lists are going to come to you on the 28th. I think you're going to have those lists much sooner than that. I'm thinking probably by Monday at the very latest. So I will make sure that I get working on that for you. And with that, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate your participation. If you have any more follow-up questions, if you have any concerns, you can email me, you can give me a call, and I promise to get right back to you. And we'll do everything that we can to make sure that we do what's best for your child. So thank you, everybody. Good night.